Breakfast. It can range from gourmet to buffet, but most of us wake up with cereal at the beginning of our day. But how did it get this way? From cheese tray to Special K, why is breakfast the most important meal of the day? Why am I rhyming this? Humans have never really decided whether or not we want to commit to breakfast. We've had an on-again, off-again relationship for the past few thousand years. In Old English, the first meal of the day was called disner, which is where we get the word dinner from. Disner came from the Old French disner, which came from déjeuner, meaning to break one's fast. You can still see this word in modern French with déjeuner and Spanish with desayuno. It wasn't until the 15th century that the word breakfast came into use, meaning to literally break the fast of the prior night. In ancient Egypt, peasants ate a maximum of 2 meals a day, breakfast and a late afternoon dinner. Breakfast would consist of beer, bread, onions, garlic and maybe some fruit. This was to fill them up for a long day of building spaceship landing pads. In ancient Rome, breakfast was mostly frowned upon. According to food historian Caroline Yeldam, the Romans didn't really like breakfast and preferred to eat once a day around noon. During the Middle Ages in Europe, breakfast was not considered an important meal. 2 meals were eaten per day, one at midday and one in the evening. Eating a meal in the early morning was downright sinful. Breakfast was reserved for the growing, the ill and the dying, along with manual labourers. Eating breakfast was seen as something for the weak, or people so poor that they really needed the energy in order to do their low-status morning labour. People were often ashamed of eating breakfast, and it was a quick, silent affair. It usually consisted of a bit of bread and a piece of cheese, with some beer of course. After the colonizations of the Americas and the Renaissance in the 15th and 16th centuries, breakfast among the noble classes started becoming popular. The introduction of caffeinated beverages and chocolate, which was usually drank back then, is what most likely spurred this new trend. Because even our ancestors needed a morning caffeine boost. With the Industrial Revolution in the 19th century, people started working set hours in factories. More and more people of all classes started eating a morning meal before heading off to work. Breakfast started getting heavier and heavier with the inclusion of sausages, bacon, eggs, beans, bread, potatoes and more. An epidemic started spreading across the breakfast eating world, dyspepsia or indigestion, and much like our modern obesity issue, it dominated the media at the time. It was in response to this pain that solutions started being developed in the United States. Europe did not bother trying to cure the problem as they had already accepted the fact that life is pain. It began in the health sanatoriums that were popular in the US during the 1800s. These sanatoriums were similar to modern health spas and featured lots of baths and pseudoscience-y type practices. They were run by the likes of Sylvester Graham and Dr. John Harvey Kellogg. Graham was a dietary reformer who tried to push his moralist beliefs through food. He believed meat and spices had a negative effect on a person's morals, and he developed his Graham cracker in response to this. The uninterestingly named James Jackson invented wheat granula at his sanatorium in 1863. It is considered the first ready-to-eat breakfast cereal. Kellogg copied him and invented his own granula, which he swiftly renamed granola after being sued. Now, these weren't the tasty, sugary coated cornflakes that we know today. Jackson's granula was soaked in milk overnight just to make it edible and was called Wheat Rocks by critics. But somehow within the first year that the product was available, it sold more than 50 tons. Americans loved cereal because it didn't have to be cooked. It served as one of the first convenience foods right when people's time was being monopolized by factory work. Kellogg believed that it was the high amount of meat in the American diet that caused sexual desire, and he wanted to cure masturbation through the use of whole grains.
Highly seasoned meats, stimulating sauces and daintily tidbits in endless variety irritate the nerves and react upon the sexual organs.
He also recommended circumcision and tying children's hands behind their backs with rope because he was a really fun guy. Marketers began taking an interest in the new cereal industry. Marketers that included Kellogg's own brother and C.W. Post, a previous patient of Dr. Kellogg. Will Keith Kellogg and C.W. Post started their own cereal companies, the Kellogg Company and Post Cereals. Both of them became wildly successful thanks to 2 key ingredients, sugar and advertising. Originally, the Kellogg brothers couldn't agree whether or not to add sugar. Post Cereals had seen wild success after adding sugar to their products. But Dr. Kellogg believed that sugar was evil, while his brother thought it was necessary to improve the flavour of their horse food. Eventually sugar, and therefore Satan, won. Cereal still assured everybody that it was a health food. C.W. Post continued to claim that his cereal could cure everything from loose teeth to malaria. Cereal companies soon realised that children were a great market. They pioneered the use of cartoon mascots in the 1930s, and this combination of marketing and childhood sugar addiction created a generation of cereal lovers. The cereal industry knew that establishing a brand was paramount. Whether through dodgy health claims or cartoon characters, all that mattered was that people associated your cereal with their morning. The sunshine that makes the business plant grow is advertising, said CW Post, who would be worth $800 million today. In 1944, Grape Nuts launched a campaign that involved pamphlets about the benefits of eating a good breakfast, and they had nutritionists repeatedly state on the radio that breakfast was the most important meal of the day. Today, breakfast is one of the most highly competitive markets. Advertising spending is so high that when you buy cereal, about a quarter of the money you spend is going to be used to persuade you to buy more cereal. Because of this, the sales of cereal worldwide equate to nearly $28 billion, and 370 million kilograms of sugar is used every year to make cereal. The breakfast industry is so competitive because they know that once you choose their brand, that is all you will eat every morning for years. Breakfast is pretty much the only set meal of the day. Dinner and lunch change, but you wake up to Cheerios every morning. The advertising industry managed to convince people to stop consuming their traditional breakfasts and instead eat incredibly unnutritious, sugary processed grains. Today, the Irish are the world's top cereal consumers, eating about 8.4 kilos per person per year, compared to the UK at 6.7 kilos and the US at 4.5 kilos. And that's how breakfast became the most important meal of the day. The cornflakes or Cocoa Puffs that you ate this morning, while originally designed to solve your indigestion and your chronic masturbation problem, are now titans of the advertising industry and examples of just how easy it is to create a cultural tradition. If you like this video, please leave a comment below and tell me what you want the next video to be about.